Today we're back at Bellagio playing 25-50 in Bobby's room. There's no 100-100 running today, so this is the biggest game in Las Vegas this morning. We've got 10,000 in front of us, which is the max. There are quite a few familiar frenemies at the table. We begin play a little after 10 a.m. with hopes of making it 3 straight high-stakes wins in a row. Early on, we're dealt 7-deuce offsuit in the big blind. We're playing the 7-deuce game, so if we win with this hand, we'll receive $200 from each player at the table. Player in middle position raises to 150. The button calls. I like to mix in calling and 3-betting. I call for 100 more this time. We're going 3 ways to the flop out of position. It comes king 8-5 all hearts. We're going to be defending a lot of suited combos from the big blind, so we're the most likely person to flop a flush. I check. The initial pre-flop raiser won't have a ton of flushes when there's a king, or even more so with an ace out on a monotone flop like this one. He checks. The button checks back. We've got the green light to start bluffing. The turn is the 4 diamonds. I like it. We've got removal to both straight and flush combos. There's no reason to believe that either of our opponents are strong. We're by far the most likely candidate to be holding 2 pair or better given the board and the action. I make a slight overbet of 600 to ideally take this one down without any resistance. Within about a half a second, both opponents fold. We turn over our cards to give everyone the bad news that they owe us $200 each. Not only do we win the pot, we win an additional $1,400. Today we're trying this brand new thing where we don't get into a gaping hole immediately. It's good to be winning right away for a change. Here we look down at Queen Jack suited in the cutoff. Under the gun kicks things off with the raise to 150. We're mostly going to be calling, but we can 3-bet as well. I call to see a flop in position. The big blind also calls. 3 of us are advancing. The flop comes 8-3 deuce all diamonds. We flop the 3rd nuts and have multiple opponents. The big blind checks. Under the gun checks. We're not going to be slow playing since our hand is vulnerable. If another diamond comes out, we'll have to be concerned that someone could be holding the ace or king of diamonds for higher flush, and even if they aren't, it'd be tough to get paid by a worse holding with 4 to a flush on board. I make a small bet of 150. I'll go for a much larger sizing on the turn if it's a good card for us. The big blind folds. Under the gun wants to see at least one more card. He calls. There's a good chance that he's holding one of those higher diamonds. The turn is the ace of hearts. I love seeing it. Hopefully our opponent just improved the top pair to go along with a flush draw, which will give him false hope that he could win without hitting a flush. He checks. This is when we lay down the law with a large bet and target his ace-x offsuit. If he happens to already have the ace or king high flush, he's going to make a lot of money from me because we're not going to be getting rid of our hand at this juncture. I make a healthy bet of 550 to build a pot so big that Bob would be proud of it. The opponent doesn't have any issues with the sizing. He makes the call. If we can get a blank on the river, we'll be bombing it. The dealer puts out the 5 of diamonds. It's an absolutely awful card to see. Our queen high flush is easy to spot, and we may have just lost the lead. Under the gun is at least going to rep the ace of diamonds with a significant bet of 1,200. We've been showing strength the whole way. There's really no reason for the opponent to think that we won't have the ace of diamonds, so this would be an extremely gutsy line as a bluff or with any hand worse than ours. It's an annoying spot because we got such an amazing flop, but these are the kinds of situations I've been trying to get better at, which is not paying off when they're telling credible stories that they have the nuts, regardless of how strong our hand was. The issue is that it's just so fun to pay people off for the vlog. But no, Brad, don't do it. I stick to my New Year's resolution of playing better. I fold. The opponent is courteous enough to let us know that he got there on the river by showing the ace of diamonds. It seems our read was correct. We avoid losing an additional 1,200 at the end. I appreciate you, Sean. Next, we're dealt 7 deuce for a second time today. We've got an opportunity to win some bonus money from everyone once again, and there's very little in life I like more than bonus money. Having the 7 deuce game on is one of my favorite parts about playing with this group. I raised to 125 from under the gun +1. The hijack calls. The opponent, who beat us in the previous hand we went over, 3-bets to 600 from the button. He's more capable than most to put in a light 3-bet. Ordinarily, it's fine to give up 7 deuce once we get 3-bet, but against this particular player who I know has a wide 3-bet range, I'm not as willing to let it go. I 4-bet to 1800. This puts us in a dicey situation since we're risking more than we'd make in additional money from the other players at the table if we win with 7 deuce. The hijack folds. We just need to get through the button in order to win over $2,000. The button calls, ruining my plan. It looks like we're going to be taking the suited version of the worst hand in poker to the flop in a 4-bet pot from out of position with a stack to pot ratio of about 2. Good luck us. The flop comes 10-8 deuce with 2 clubs. The good news is that we flop a pair. The bad news is that we have no idea whether it's good or not. We beat ace king and ace queen suited combos. I've mostly given up contributing money with this hand after our 4-bet got called though. I checked an in-position player. What he does will be quite telling. He checks back, so now there's at least a decent possibility that our pair is best. The turn is the 6 of diamonds. It should be a complete blank, except we pick up a straight draw to go along with our pair. I'd love to get to showdown or at least see a free river card. I check, not expecting to see the button bet for value after he checks back the flop. He fires for 3,000 though. This is a large sizing. I only have 7,300 total. It seems as if he thinks we both have a hand like ace king and he's trying to get me off of a chop. I'm having a hard time determining how he's betting this much for value and what hands he'd do this with. Even if he slow played aces pre-flop, he probably would have bet the flop rather than wait until the turn to fire big. He seems to be trying to get me to fold. We can beat all of his high card combos, and even if we somehow are up against a pair, or absolute worst case scenario a set, we'll have some outs. I've seen this player make bets like this as a bluff or semi-bluff, then fold as soon as he gets raised. If we can muster up the courage to shove in this spot, we'd not only win everything in the middle, we'd get that extra 1,400 for winning with 7 deuce. With all that considered, I'm going for it. Owen. We rip it for 7,300 and don't get snap called. I know this is a weird story we're telling when we 4-bet, then check flop, and check jam the turn, but we're mostly just banking on our opponent not having much. We might have caught him making a move. He's rightfully skeptical of us though. He makes the call, potentially very light. Sounds good. We both turn over our cards and the opponent has 6-5 for a pair of sixes that he hit on the turn. Our read was correct that he wasn't that strong when he bet, but he called our shove light. We 4-bet pre-flop with the 7 high, obviously for value. The problem for us now is that we need to improve by hitting a deuce, 7, or 9 for the straight. We've got one chance at it. The river is a miracle 7. Oh shit. We smash 2 pair on the river to take down an $18,000 pot. Plus, we're going to get 200 from each player at the table. We run insanely well, but it's okay to get lucky sometimes. The opponent takes the bad beat well.
Brad.
I tried to give you all my money, John.
You did, Brad.
1, 2, 3. Let me break 1 down.
Let's see if I'm going to fall short. Yeah.
4, 5, 6,
Oh, wait.
7.
Oh shit, I didn't see the John had a flush. Nice hand. Jesus, brutal. I feel like I lost it.
75.
Okay, let me buy back some, John, if that's okay. I didn't initially see that John rivered a flush. I kind of mentally ruled out flush draws from his range when he checked back the flop, so I wasn't looking for it. All I saw was the 7, and when I heard the table's reaction, it felt like the lead changed for us to scoop an enormous pot, but the button smashes the most painful card for us to see. Any other 7 would have given us the win. It's an embarrassing moment, made worse by the fact that I just got stacked. I feel like I had $20,000 and someone just ripped it out of my hands. It's a devastating blow that leaves me in the hole $10,000. It's going to be tough to mentally recover from this. Less than 20 minutes later, we're dealt pocket 10s on the button. The cutoff is a buddy of mine, Adam Walton. He raises to 125. We're supposed to split between calling and 3-betting. I'm still rocked from losing the all-in with 7 deuce. It's not as good of an idea to inflate the pot when you're not thinking totally clearly and there's no difference in EV. I call. The big blind is Jeremiah Williams. He's a Twitch streamer and 2-time bracelet winner who's an extremely nice younger guy. He's made it clear that he's excited to play against me for the first time because he's enjoyed watching a lot of my content over the past several years. The big blind 3-bets is 600. The cutoff folds. He must not have had much. Our decision is easy with a high pocket pair that's under-repped. We'll be playing in position post-flop. I call with what's very likely the best hand. A lot of 3-bets are done with 7 deuce, so I wouldn't be shocked if that's what we're up against. It's down to heads up. The flop comes queen 6 full rainbow. It's not anything to be excited about with 1 over, but there aren't a ton of combos that the opponent will have containing a queen that he would have 3-bet with. We even have removal to some of them. An ace or king high flop would have been a lot worse. The big blind doesn't slow down though. He bets 1,000. He's blasting out of the gate, repping top pair or better. It's as if I'm at Barnes & Noble breezing right past the Twilight Saga books. I'm not buying that fictional story. I call to see what develops on the turn. We release a yellow bird, hoping it'll come back with friends. The dealer puts out the king of clubs. It's a really bad card for us because a lot of the opponent's bluffs on the flop will come from ace-king and king-jack suited type of hands that interact with the queen. The big blind snap bets 2200 with seemingly no thought or consideration about us possibly having a monster. We can easily have sets or king-queen, so I'm surprised to see this. Usually when someone acts quickly like that, it's not done with the hand that they're trying to represent. It's done as a bluff. They're acting quickly to feign confidence and strength. Usually, when you actually have a strong hand, you take your time to think about optimal sizing. For instance, if he has a set of queens or kings, or if he has king-queen or ace-king, he might bet smaller or sometimes even check because it's tougher for me to stick around with a pair of queens. I call again in large part due to the suspect timing of the opponent. Now the big blind should be really concerned that we have top pair or potentially two pair or a set. There's a relatively dry board other than some straight draws. The river is the jack of spades, and we get another snap decision from the opponent. The opponent rips it for 5,500 effective. He has me barely covered. Part of me wishes that I just folded on the turn, but I went with my read. Now we have a little more information to work with since he's shown a willingness to jam on the next street. I'm just not sure that he'd play hands like ace or ace king this way since I'll have a ton of two pair combos, and even some sets. It just feels like he's trying to win this one with brute force, knowing 3 Broadway cards is good for his range as the 3 better. He won't have a set of jacks when he bets flop and turn. I don't think that he'd 3-bet pocket 6s or 4s very often. The number of real hands that I think he'd play this way is small. Ace 10 and 10-9 are combos that make sense, but we know where half the 10s are, so those are super discounted. As far as bluffs go, he can have a lot of air hands like 7-deuce, 5-4 suited, 8-7 suited, ace-5 and ace-4 suited. I just really didn't think that he was strong on the turn, but can we find the call with 4th pair? And should we find the call with 4th pair?
Feels a lot like 7-deuce.
We're going to be up against some straights, maybe a set of kings or queens, perhaps king-queen, and a good amount of airball combos. I've been in the tank for a long time. Usually, when I'm thinking for a while, it can be a bit dangerous.
Alright.
We make the call. The opponent has ace-10 of clubs. He hit runner perfect to smash the nuts, made even more perfect by the fact that we knew where 2 10s were the whole time.
Wow. So sick. Yeah. Nice hand, nice hand. Pretty close.
This is a very unfortunate run out. If the river were almost any other card, there's a strong possibility the big blind would have triple barreled and our hero call would have made us a lot of money. Our read on the turn was good, but the big blind gets rewarded by drilling the best card in the deck. Despite not getting a fortunate run out, there's a lesson to be learned. I still should have folded the turn when we were downgraded to 3rd pair. I had a second opportunity to get away on the river when facing a bet that was much bigger, but I couldn't get myself to do it. It cost me $7,200 to stick around past the point when I should have let go. That's a massive mistake. If I wasn't still processing the 7-deuce loss and I was thinking more clearly, I probably could have found the fold. The big blind is excited to beat me in a big all-in pot. At least it's a good memory for him. He takes out his phone to share it with loved ones.
Sure.
I really hope Mrs. Jeremiah enjoys seeing the picture of me being stuck $20,000. After adding on for 5 figures more, we're dealt ace-king offsuit on the button. We're in for $33,000 total at the moment, not playing particularly well. The New Year's resolution is out the window, but things can change quickly. Like my man Ted Lasso says, we've got to have a memory like a goldfish. The past hands don't matter and shouldn't affect our future decisions. It'll be tough to have a winning session, but we can potentially still salvage some money. A player in middle position raises to 150. He's on the tighter side. While we can always 3-bet, we're actually supposed to call with ace-king offsuit a lot more than people may realize in this situation. I flat to play a pot in position with a well-concealed hand. The small blind isn't going to let anyone see a flop for 150. He 3-bets to 750. He has 7,300 total in his stack. The initial raiser folds. I'm glad to see that. After playing passively, we can now go for an unexpected back 4-bet with a hand that'll be tough for the small blind to put us on. I re-raised to 2,000. Our play should look odd to the small blind. He might even 5-bet jam light with ace-x suited or 7-deuce, thinking that we'd never play aces or kings this way. What could we possibly have? I already know what we'll do if the opponent shoves for 5,300 more. We'll be calling. The small blind jams. We grab a black chip to make the call. The small blind asks if we want to run it twice. I say it's up to him as I show our cards. The small blind reveals that he has ace-king of spades. Since he's suited, he's slightly ahead, but it's very likely that we'll chop, so we decided to run it one time. We don't want to see any spades on the flop. The dealer puts out queen, queen, jack with 1 spade. That's not too bad. As long as there's no spade on the turn, we'll split the pot. The deck doesn't always comply though. Thank God. Poker gods make it as torturous as possible with the opponent turning the flush draw, but ultimately we split the pot. Otherwise, we'd have been down 3 buy-ins. I'll certainly take the chop after a very stressful few hours of playing so far. It's time for a bomb pot. Each player puts in $200 each, and we go straight to a flop. We've got ace-7 of hearts on the button with 7 opponents. The dealer puts out ace-queen-5 rainbow. We've got top pair, but potentially some kicker problems. Checks to the cutoff. Our neighbor makes a small bet of 200 into 1600. Players make these type of small probe bets when there are tons of opponents because they're extremely effective at getting people to fold marginal hands that have equity. Our ace is probably best, but we want to give more encouragement to everyone behind us thinking about folding while we take control of the pot. I raise to 600. Now, no one between us and the cutoff can really stick around without 2 pair or better. We might even be able to get better aces to fold. Ultimately, all of our opponents fold. We win a 4-figure pot to regain some sanity in the midst of a nightmare session. Here we're dealt 10-9 suited on the button. A player in middle position raises to 150. He's a friend of mine. We've got another one of those hands that will split between calling and 3-betting. I've been playing somewhat passively since 4-betting with 7 deuce toward the start of the session. It's time to ramp up the aggression. I 3-bet to 500. Winning this without a fight is a positive result, but we have a decent holding to take to war in position. Even if we get 4-bet, we're supposed to pure call 10-9 suited. It's good to know that information because the middle position player doesn't back down. He 4-bets to 1800. The dealer already brought in our $500 3-bet. It's 1300 more for us to see a flop. There are a lot of fun ones. I call hoping that we can finally make a strong hand today that holds. We've gotten some absurd runouts and a lot of key spots so far. The flop comes ace-9-8 with 2 spades. We've got middle pair and a backdoor straight draw, which is just enough of a piece to potentially get us into a lot of trouble. The middle position player makes a bit of a down bet to 1500. Middle pair and a backdoor straight draw isn't a hand that we'll be abandoning to a single bet on the smaller side. I make the mandatory call. I'd like our combo more if we at least had a backdoor flush draw to go with it. That's alright. The turn is another ace. It's not a card that helps us improve, but it makes it less likely that the opponent is holding an ace. 2 aces on the board isn't scaring him though. He bets 2400. It's time to let our pair go. There are very few bluffs the opponent is going to have. Even if he has 7 deuce in this spot, good for him. He deserves the win and the bonus money. A lot of his light 4-bets pre-flop are supposed to come from ace-x suited hands that are now trips. It's annoying to have to let go and jump ship when the pots are getting big and we're getting a pretty decent price, but we have to. I just don't do it. I call one more time. In my head, I have a very devious plan to swing for the fences and represent a full house that we have removal for. The river is the ace of hearts putting 3 aces on board. This is a bizarre run out because now it's way less likely that the opponent has an ace, but we won't be turning our newly acquired full house into a bluff. We're actually not enthusiastic about putting any more money in because the opponent isn't concerned about 3 aces on board.
Owen.
You win, man. You win. I lose another giant pot. This one, I'm not too upset about the majority of it, but I could have saved at least 2400 by not calling the turn. My friend at least tries to make me feel better by later telling me he had ace-king offsuit for quads. I'm not 100% sure I believe him though, mostly because as he tried to recall his exact holding, he said that he had the ace of spades and the king of clubs. But when the cards are returned to the dealer here, we see what looks to be a red face card of some sort, and to me it looks like a queen. We might have just been bluffed 4 times on one hand during all 3 streets, and then once after with the explanation. I'm wondering if maybe he had king-queen or queen-jack and barreled away. In this one, we're dealt king-jack of spades under the gun +1, under the gun raises to 125. I call. A newer player just showed up on my left. He 3-bets at 250. He's considered a VIP. Actually, a few players have shown up who I would typically have a chance at beating, although today, I'm not certain I can beat anyone. Under the gun calls the tiny re-raise. It's tough to get a better price than this. I call for 125 more. We're going 3 ways to the flop. It comes 10-9-4 with 2 spades. We've got a straight flush draw with 2 overs. Where was this flop in the previous hand though? Under the gun checks. I check to the 3-better. The player on our left bets 350. I like seeing money put into the pot. Under the gun calls, we've got a draw strong enough to get it in with. I put in the check raise to 1200. Under the gun +2 may not have a whole lot after all. He folds. Under the gun knows that I can have quite a few combos that connect well with this flop, including all the sets. He folds as well. Part of me wishes that we could see a turn in river to find out if we would have improved, but given how things have been going today, I'm totally fine winning without having to make a real hand. I'm actually multi-tabling. I'm also playing on ClubWPTGold.com on my phone. It's a brand new site for US and soon Canadian players. If you sign up to the site using promo BRAD, you can get early access to phase 1 of the launch and can play on your phone or computer. It's a sweepstakes model, so you have to play with sweeps coins that you purchase, labeled SC, but sweeps coins are redeemable for cash at a 1-to-1 rate with the US dollar. I have more information in the description box below if you're interested in playing online against me. When live isn't going well, especially when it's going really poorly like today, I sometimes like to fire up online on my phone to distract me from getting torched. I don't recommend this strategy for everyone, but for me at least, simultaneously playing online helps keep me calm in certain instances, and I tend to not want to get involved in as many speculative situations, which is beneficial at the moment. The very next hand we're dealt ace-king offsuit under the gun. I raised to 125. The player on our left calls. The hijack 3-bets to 425. He's another VIP, which is the status that I've secured with today's play. The game has gotten pretty good. When we get 3-bet after opening when we're first to act, it's alarming though. We should really only be up against a very narrow range of top tier hands, so I'm not inclined to 4-bet. I call for 300 more. Under the gun +1 also calls. 3 of us are seeing the flop. We're out of position. The flop comes Queen 8-5 with 2 clubs. We don't have a pair, but we've got 2 overs and some strong backdoor draws. I check. Under the gun +1 checks. The hijack is going to take a stab at it. He bets 350. I'm not in a hurry to let go of ace-king, and we have a few ways to win. If we hit an ace or king, we should be good. A club on the turn will open up some doors for us as well. We can maybe even turn our hand into a bluff to represent the ace-high flush that we have removal for. I call to at least see one more card. Under the gun +1 folds. It's down to heads up. The turn is the 5 of clubs pairing the board, but we pick up the flush draw. I check. The hijack is putting his foot to the floor. He bets 750. Calling and playing out of position with hopes of hitting a club on the river isn't the most appealing option. I prefer to try to win the hand on this street and hit a flush only if we need to as a backup option. I check raise to 2400 as a semi-bluff. I can tell right away that the hijack isn't happy to see it. He gets his hand caught, trying to take Teddy KGB's Oreos, even though the rack clearly says don't touch. The opponent folds showing 7 deuce. He was trying to get $200 from each player at the table. Our timing in hand finally works out today. We were bluffing with the lead. It's 2 pots in a row that are pushed towards us. I don't want to get your guys' hopes up, but I'm feeling a comeback. All we need to do is win 20 more pots just like this one, and we'll be out of the $25,000 hole that I dug for us. We pick up queens and another $200 bomb pot. We're on the button. Usually this isn't the time when you want to pick up a premium because it's hard to beat out 7 other random holdings without improving, but I'm okay with it now. The flop comes Jack 7-3 rainbow. We've got an overpair to the board. The player in middle position makes a small bet at 300. We can't allow him to get away with a wager of that size. The hijack likes discounts. He calls. Our hand can benefit from protection. Not only do we not want to see overcards, we have no idea what other random cards we may need to fade in order to retain the lead if we have it at all. If we want to win, it's important to narrow down the field though. I raised to 1200 in order to accomplish just that. If we get re-raised, we can comfortably fold knowing that we're probably up against 2 pair or a set. The player in middle position calls for 900 more. He could be playing a set tricky, but it's more probable that he has top pair with a decent kicker like ace-jack. The hijack also calls, which is something that I didn't expect to see. This has me very concerned that pocket queens isn't the best hand. The turn is the 4 diamonds. It could be a blank, or maybe someone has the Robbie. It's possible that one of our opponents has 6-5 at diamonds, clubs, or hearts. It checks to me. We don't want to blast away with 1 pair when 8 people saw the flop with uncapped ranges. I check back for pot control. The river is the ace of spades. It's a terrible card for a ton of reasons. Checks to us once again. If we bet, we'd basically be turning our hand into a bluff because it's difficult to get called by worse. I check back. The middle position player has Jack 10. We beat that. The cutoff has Jack 3 though. He flopped top and bottom pair. It holds. I lose a disappointing one, but at least I lose close to the minimum by checking back turn. When I'm struggling to make hands and in the midst of getting slaughtered, it's important to take solace in small victories to try and be in a better headspace. Next we're dealt pocket 10s under the gun +1. I raised to 125. We get a couple of people interested. The cutoff calls. The small blind also calls. We're going 3 ways to the flop. The dealer puts out 6-6-3 with 2 spades. It looks innocuous enough when we've got an overpair to the board. The small blind checks. We need quite a bit of protection from overcards and the flush draw getting there. I bet 300 to get value out of someone holding spades or smaller pocket pairs. The cutoff calls. It isn't too worrisome. If he had a 6, he might raise for protection. Small blind folds. It's down to heads up. The turn is another 3, which isn't too bad of a card because there shouldn't be many 3s in the opponent's range other than pocket 3s and maybe ace-3 of hearts or diamonds. But I don't want this pot to get out of control in case the opponent happens to have us beat. I check because I'll almost never have a full house in this situation, whereas the cutoff might. The opponent is going to take advantage of our passive turn play. He makes a big bet of 1500. If he really had the nuts or something close to it, I'm not sure he'd make well over a pot-sized bet. This feels a lot like a bluff with maybe a flush draw. We're close to the top of our range, so we can't let go just yet. I call. The river could be tough for us to navigate if we face more aggression. The dealer puts out the 4 of spades. The front door flush draw gets there. I don't like that at all. I check. If the opponent has a flush, he might even check back on a double paired board, especially if he doesn't have the nut flush. The opponent doesn't check though. He overbet rips it for 6,600 effective. He has me well covered. This day is unbelievable. I've certainly made it harder on myself, but I've had almost 0 easy decisions and no spots on the river to bet for value. Poker's a mental battle with yourself, and I'm being tested today. I've certainly called all-ins with worse, including earlier in the session. This once again feels incredibly strange and like a bluff, but everything has gotten there, unless we're up against 7 deuce again, or a hand like 5-4, or some other combo with 2 clubs that missed the backdoor flush draw. I mentioned a couple of times already that you just have to fold occasionally when you don't want to, knowing it's the right play. If you're not getting successfully bluffed every once in a while, it's a clear sign that you're calling too frequently. It's just so difficult when I'm already down heaps to believe that these guys keep having it over and over. My mind is incredibly clouded at the moment. I finally decide it's just not worth it. I make the disciplined fold. The opponent shows some mercy, knowing that it's been an atrocious day. He flicks in pocket 3s, he flopped a full house, and turned quads.
Wow. Jesus. How do I run into it every...
I'm not sure if my friend actually had quad aces or not earlier. I'm leaning towards not, but if he did, this is the second time I've run into quads today. I'm questioning a lot of my life choices that have led me to being here. People think playing poker for a living is fun, and it's true, there are plenty of fun moments, but a day like today takes its toll. At every turn, it feels like I'm getting my face smashed in with a baseball bat. When I can't win in poker, I lose a lot more than just money. I lose confidence in myself. Poker's the one thing that I'm supposed to be good at, so when I get crushed, I feel like maybe I'm a fraud, failure, or like I don't have anything that I'm good at. It's completely demoralizing. It's not a feeling that I'd wish for anyone else, which is why I never encourage people to play for a living. It's much more enjoyable to play as hopefully a profitable hobby. Having to rely on poker income to pay bills and other life expenses is incredibly taxing mentally, and the lows are very extreme. Next we're dealt ace-9 suited on the button. The hijack raises to 150. The cutoff calls. It's a new player who just strolled in. He's not a professional. I call to see a flop in position. 3 of us are in it to win it. The flop comes king-jack-8 with 2 diamonds. We've got a flush draw with 1 over and a backdoor straight draw. This would be a good time to make a big hand and turn things around. The hijack checks. The cutoff sees an opportunity to take the pot down. He bets 400. The cutoff didn't 3-bet pre-flop, so he won't have sets of kings or jacks. The best hands that he'll have are hands like a set of 8s or king-jack. There's a solid chance that he might have a worse draw than ours that we want to keep in. I call. The action's on the hijack. Despite not betting initially, he calls to close the action. He won't have anything too strong when he doesn't bet or check raise on a draw-heavy board. Mostly he'll have draws or 1 pair at best. The turn is to 8 of spades. The board pairs and there's another flush draw out there. It's not a great card for us because we're no longer drawing to the nuts. The hijack checks. The cutoff is continuing with his story. He bets 900. I'm torn at this point. There's some chance that we're already drawing dead. If there were more full house combos in the cutoff's range, I'd definitely fold, but I've already ruled out kings and jacks from the cutoff. The only real full houses that he might have are hands like king 8 and jack 8 suited. There are only 4 total combos of those. I'm not even sure the cutoff would call a pre-flop raise with them. I still think there's a strong possibility that he might have top pair, or he's semi-bluffing with a worse draw than us. If we flush over flush him, we could maybe get it all. I call. The entire session, we haven't gotten a single good river card that's helped us in hands like these. It's time to drill one. The hijack folds. It's down to heads up with a big pot brewing. The river's the 6 of diamonds. We smash it. It's a beautiful sight. It took all day, but we finally have the opportunity to win a substantial pot. The opponent has exactly $6,000. He does the hard part for me, and he overbet jams. I'm not quite as happy to see it as I thought I'd be, because he's saying that he's got at least a flush. There may be some bluffs he's trying to buy the pot with, like Queen 10 or 10-9 of spades, or maybe some random hand that I wouldn't expect. I don't realistically see how we can river the hand that we were trying to hit and fold, especially against this particular opponent. I call. We get the bad news that our ace-high flush is no good.
Quads?
Yeah.
That is the 3rd time I've run into quads today. Alright. Nice hand, nice hand.
With 6K, you got a $25.
I didn't push the 25. I just bought it.
Sorry, my bad.
6K?
Yeah, 6K.
This is definitely one of the top 5 most difficult poker sessions that I've ever had to get through. I don't know what to do when I'm running over pairs and flushes into quads over and over. The game is maybe the best I've seen it in Bobby's room, and I keep thinking that something has to change in our favor at some point, which is why I can't get myself to leave. I add on for 7,500 more. I'm in for 52,500 total when we're dealt 5-4 suited in the big blind. Under the gun limps in for 50. I'm sandwiched between guys who just play for fun. Doesn't make a difference today though. The better the game, the harder it is for me to win. The cutoff raises to 200 to isolate the limper. Small blind calls. We've got a playable hand in a lane of its own. I call with expectations that under the gun will call to close the action. He 3-bets to 800 instead. I've seen this move done a lot by hands like aces, kings, and ace king. The cutoff and small blind fold. We kind of have the perfect combo to crack aces or kings and stack the opponent. I call for 600 more. We're heads up out of position. The flop comes Queen 9-3 with 2 diamonds. We've got a flush draw and backdoor straight draw. I check. I anticipate facing a bet. We won't raise as a semi-bluff because there's no way a hand like aces or kings would fold. Under the gun bet's 900. We have nowhere to go. I call. It'd be great to improve. The turn is the 4 of hearts. We hit a pair and maybe pick up some outs. I check. Our pair might be good enough to win because the opponent checks back, which I wouldn't expect if he had an overpair on what should be considered a blank turn. Don't get too excited though. The river is the ace of clubs. Any ideas of beating ace king quickly vanish. We've got 4th pair and we're not going to turn our hand into a bluff. I check. The opponent immediately checks back.
I can't beat anything. That's something I can't beat.
The opponent wins with pocket sixes. In over 20 years of playing poker, I've never seen anyone limp 3-bet pocket sixes in a cash game from under the gun. If you gave me 100 guesses on how I might have lost in the hand, I don't think that I ever would have come up with pocket sixes, but the man wins close to the maximum. I play until the game breaks. I lose $42,320 over about 8 hours. It's the worst session that I've ever had at Bellagio. As bad as it is, these are the stakes that I want to be playing, and sometimes you're just going to completely get your ass kicked. I have to be willing to take the lumps and bruises along the way if I'm going to eventually be a consistent winner at these stakes. It's not going to be all blue skies and smooth sailing. I've gone through bigger losses in the past and come out the other side quicker than expected. Right now the loss is painful. This is not the end of the world though. I'm done playing today, but the poker isn't over, even for the episode. Very, very rough day, and that's just part of poker. And one thing that I really want to work on going forward is just being better about taking big losses. And sometimes it's easy to get down on yourself and really beat yourself up and feel like the whole world is ending, but that's not really the case. Like, there's a lot of really great things that most people who play poker have going on in their lives if they have disposable income to come out and fire. So that's the message that I hope to get across to you guys, and hopefully the next vlog is a little bit more fun and we can win some more hands, man. I really wanted to win. I really wanted to have something fun go our way for the vlog, and very, very little of that happened, unfortunately. So hopefully next time. The following day, I head to Poker Go Studio to mix things up and play against literally the best players in the world in a PGT tournament. It's a $5,300 buy-in, which seems like pennies after everything I lost at Bellagio. Change in scenery is exactly what I need. The studio is such a fun environment to play in. Here's a look at the first table I'll be seated at once the 5 seat gets moved. I'll be sitting between Jeremy Becker and Shannon Shore, who has over $14 million in live earnings. Kristen Foxton is in the 8 seat next to the dealer, along with multiple other notable players. I arrived late with only 52 of 71 entrants remaining. Everyone starts with 125,000 in chips. I've got some catching up to do though. Things don't go well for me on my first bullet. I bust after getting it in pre-flop with pocket 10s and losing to Kristen's pocket jacks. Pocket 10s hasn't done well for me as of late. Things go much better for me on my second bullet. Right away I get a double up with aces against ace queen after getting it in pre-flop, and then I continue to win a few more hands. I'm proud to have this stack, considering I've had to survive perhaps the most accomplished table I've ever taken a seat at. Registration closed with 2-time bracelet winner and WPT champion Dylan Lindy in the 1 seat, 6-time bracelet winner Jeremy Osmus in the 2 seat, bracelet winner Lucky Chewy in the 3 seat, me in the 4, 2-time bracelet winner Justin Saliba in the 5, 17-time bracelet winner Phil Hellmuth in the 6, Ram Zobian in the 7, and Sean Winter in the 8. Altogether, there's well over $100 million in live earnings at the table and 28 bracelets, plus I heard someone here took down the $2,200 horse championship event at the Wynn in December for $60,500. That's incredible. It's a big achievement to outlast Jeremy, Lucky Chewy, Hellmuth, and Sean Winter as we get the stack up over 400,000 while the field diminishes quite a bit. There are only 30 players left out of 112 total entrants. The top 16 make the money. We're still a long way off, but it's starting to get exciting. Only 29 players stand in between us and the first place prize of $142,800. Unfortunately, we need to get third or better in this in order to make a profit on the last 2 days after getting entirely annihilated in Bobby's room. At least we have a decent chance of getting a large chunk back. With blinds of 10,000, 20,000, we're dealt ace-5 offsuit in the big blind. Ram Zobian raises to 40,000 for middle position. There are only 21 players left in the field. We're 5 away from the money, and I have a medium stack. I call for 20,000 more. We're heads up. The flop comes 9-8-7 rainbow. It's a flop that's good for our range, but in this exact instance, we don't actually have much. I check. Aram doesn't want to bet when we're ordinarily going to connect pretty well. He checks back. The turn is the ace of spades, putting a flush draw out there. We hit top pair. It's hard to feel good about it though because our opponent could have a better ace, particularly when he checks back the flop. I check again. Aram knows the ace is generally better for his range. He bets 50,000. There's no way for us to fold top pair, but it's hard to feel great investing a good chunk of our stack knowing there aren't a lot of good river cards and there's a possibility that we're already drawing dead. I call anyway. The river is the 5 of diamonds, giving us 2 pair, although there's 4 to the straight on board. I check one last time. Aram is a top tier player with a ton of experience. He knows I want to make the money. He puts me to the ultimate test, jamming for 240,000 effective. If we call and we're wrong, we're out, leaving with nothing. I have to think long and hard about this decision. I don't think the opponent would play 2 pair this way unless he had something like ace-9 or ace-8. Even then, it's kind of dangerous when I can have plenty of 6s. I doubt that he'd jam with only top pair. He's going to have very few 6s in his range for the straight, which is mostly what he's representing. It's more likely to me that he's trying to push me around as we're close to the bubble. I call. Aram shows queen jack offsuit. He had complete air and only a blocker to the flopped straight. We get an enormous double up at a clutch time, but we still need a quarter of the field to bust in order to make the money, and there are no bad players left. We get down to 18 and start playing soft hand for hand, 2 away from the money with blinds of 15,000, 30,000. My stack has only gone down since getting the double up against Aram because we've had to tread carefully, but there's still several stacks shorter than us, and we wake up with a monster. A big stack in the cutoff rips it with only small stacks behind him. We call with pocket aces for 380,000, risking our tournament life. There's an all-in at the other table, so we're told to wait before we turn over our cards. I have no idea what we're up against, and we're either going to get a giant double up or we're in a bubble this event and lose another $10,000. The other hand ends at the table next door. With a player being eliminated, there are now only 17 left, and we're on the stone bubble. We finally get the green light to run our hand out. The opponent reveals ace-7 offsuit. It's about the best case scenario for us. As long as the opponent doesn't hit trip 7s or better, we're going to propel into having one of the top 10 stacks, and we should be able to coast into the money. The flop comes Jack-9 deuce with 2 hearts. It's mostly safe, but I'd like it a lot better if we were holding the ace of hearts.
Just do a club.
The turn is the 3 of hearts. That's not what I asked for at all. Now we have a legitimate sweat. If another heart comes off, I'm eliminated in 17th, and I miss out on $8,400. The river is the deuce of clubs. We get to double up and can breathe again. It's a huge relief to no longer have to nurse a 12 and 13 big blind stack. It's looking a lot more likely that we'll be able to get 5 figures back from what we lost yesterday. We only need a few more things to go our way. It doesn't take too much longer before a player with a short stack gets it in with ace queen and is up against pocket queens. No ace comes during the run out, so the short stack is eliminated, and we officially make the money to lock up a payout of $8,400, but there's a large $3,000 pay jump between 16th and 15th. I'm not thinking about that too much as we celebrate making the money with a few friends who are still in it with us. What's cool about these tournaments is that they aren't enormous fields, so it's much easier to make the final table and win. Also, this final table is live streamed the next day once we get down to 7 players. Making the final table is my next goal to accomplish. We're still in good shape to do that as we've got close to 900,000 in chips, which is about average. With 15 left, all tables are 5-handed, and we've got ace-10 offsuit under the gun. I raised to 80,000. The big blind has a tiny stack. He calls, leaving himself with only 195,000 left. The flop comes 8-8-4 with 2 spades and a diamond. The big blind checks. We might have the best hand. I shove for a small amount because our opponent is down to dust. The big blind doesn't like it. I take the fold. Ultimately, he tank calls and shows ace deuce of diamonds. He's in terrible shape. If we win, we'll have about $1 million in chips. The opponent backdoors the flush on us though. It's a gross way to lose and double up the big blind. Even Eric Seidel is surprised with the run out.
Backdoor flush.
195.
Stone dead.
The opponent wasn't exactly stone dead. It was a 70-30 when we got it in, but after being a big favorite, I'm now short with only about 10 big blinds. We need to double. A few hands later, we 3-bet jam ace-jack offsuit for 280,000. Mike Vanier calls to put us at risk. He's got pocket jiggities. We're gonna need to get lucky because we're the underdog. I'm just not getting the sense that it's our time to go home yet.
I feel kind of good about this one.
The flop comes ace-3 deuce, all diamonds. We flop an ace, but the opponent is holding the jack of diamonds. He can hit any diamond or the last remaining jack in the deck. I don't want to spoil it for you, but he's not able to hit a diamond.
Don't do it to me again. Don't do that. Wow. That is hard to do.
The opponent smashes the case jack to end our run. It's never easy to cash in a tournament. I'm happy to have done it playing against such tough competition, but to go from having a large stack and visions of immediately getting a lot of money back from the day before and potentially making a live streamed final table to losing 2 more tough runouts minutes apart and being knocked out in 14th place is a bit disappointing. With that being said, I still had a great time playing and hanging out with everyone that I have a ton of respect for. Getting 14th out of 112 in this field helps me remember that I can compete against the best players on the planet and hold my own. It restored my faith that I actually do know how to play this game a little bit, and I'm not always going to run into quads over and over. I was in this event for 2 bullets, so I only profit $600. It's good to at least book a win though and give myself a legitimate opportunity to win 6 figures. Quite a few players who were much better than me ended up losing 5 figures today. I'm not sure when I'll get the rest of the $42,000 back that I lost, but I know it'll happen eventually. I just need to stay patient, keep a level head, work on my game, and believe. That's it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, I'd appreciate it if you hit the like and subscribe buttons. Helps out the channel a ton. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to let me know in the comment section. I'm happy to get back to you. This was obviously just a brutal cash game session. It was tough to get through mentally, and you know, making this episode, it's somewhat therapeutic, but also I have to relive a lot of torturous moments. As with any session, there's always things that I could have done better to limit the damage, and especially in this particular session that we played, but I still enjoy sharing these videos and I hope that you guys get something out of them. Be sure to sign up to ClubWPTGold.com using promo Brad. That'll give you early access to phase 1. Remember, you want to be playing with those sweeps coins. It is a sweepstakes model, but the sweeps coins are redeemable for cash at 1-to-1 with the US dollars. So it's been a ton of fun to play on there. I've interacted and played with a lot of you guys, and you guys have reached out on Instagram, Twitter, and sent me emails, and it's just been really, really cool to be able to do that. I'm on there playing as much as I can, and there's new features being added all the time. So yeah, very cool. I have more information in the description box down below. Also, if you sign up using promo Brad, you're eligible for the Bradley Dollar giveaway. I'm giving away 10% of each cash game win that I have. And I had a big one that you might remember in the last vlog. I won over $7,000. So congratulations to Isaac Hansen. You've been selected for the $727 that'll be deposited into your ClubWPT Gold account. But I have a much bigger win that I haven't made the vlog for yet, but I'm excited to. So we're gonna give away more than $700, and it's a good time to sign up using promo Brad if you haven't yet to make yourself eligible for that one. We've got a big meetup game coming up at the Lodge in Austin, Texas. That'll kick off our Lodge Championship Series. It's gonna take place February 17th. It's a low stakes one. We're having tons of people there. And then we have a bunch of Lodge Championship tournaments after that. But I'm particularly excited about this meetup game because we now have our Oz Bar and Bistro up and running, and we're gonna have a proper after party after our mug for the first time. And I actually haven't even been to the restaurant yet, so I'm really looking forward to that. Hope you guys are all doing well. Hope you're staying safe. Good luck at the tables, and I'll see you next time.